Welcome everyone to the deep dive. This is where we really get into fascinating ideas and, well, hopefully come out the other side a bit wiser, definitely more curious. Today we're tackling a big one, the philosopher Albert Camus. If you've ever grappled with those big life questions, or maybe just felt that weird disconnect between what you hope for from the world and what you actually get, then yeah, this deep dive is absolutely for you. We're talking about Camus, French philosopher, writer, playwright, often lumped in with existentialists, but he actually pushed back against that label.
He really did. And that's important, actually, because his core idea, this concept of the absurd, it's the absolute foundation of his thinking. You see it laid out so clearly in his big essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, but it also runs through powerful novels like The Stranger, The Play, even his play Caligula.
Right. So our mission today is pretty clear. Let's unpack Camus's concept of the absurd. We want to break it down piece by piece, use examples from his key works, and crucially, see how it connects to our thinking today. We want to help you get a handle on this fascinating and, often misunderstood idea. And just so you know, our guide for this is excerpts from Camus, The Philosophy of Absurdity and Its Embrace. Okay, so let's start right there. When Camus talks about the absurd, it's easy to jump to thinking, life's just pointless or chaotic. Is that it? Or is it more specific?
It's definitely more specific, much more nuanced than just saying everything's meaningless. For Camus, the absurd isn't really a feeling of despair. Not exactly. It's more of a fundamental conflict, a clash. It comes from two things hitting each other. First, there's us. Humans, we have this built-in drive to find meaning, right? We naturally look for purpose, answers about why we're here, justice, order. We really want the world to make sense rationally. Yeah, we crave that explanation.
Oh.
But then the second part, the world itself, or the universe. And according to Camus, it just stays silent. It doesn't give us those neat answers we're looking for. It's indifferent. Sometimes it feels chaotic. It just doesn't have any built-in objective meaning or higher purpose that we can just discover.
Okay.
So the absurd, it happens right at that point of collision. The moment you realize there's this huge gap between what we desperately want meaning and the universe's complete refusal to provide it. And this is key. The absurd isn't in the world, and it's not in us alone. It's the result of us and the world crashing together. It's not like the end of the story, but the starting point for thinking about how we actually live in a world without those absolute guarantees.
Wow. Okay, that distinction feels really important. So if I'm getting this right, the absurd isn't the feeling of meaninglessness itself, but the tension. The friction between our need for meaning and the universe just not playing ball. It's like, okay, imagine planning the perfect, most detailed vacation ever. You've got the itinerary, the outfits, you've imagined every conversation. Then you arrive and it's this vast, stunningly beautiful, but totally wild landscape. No signs, no map provided, no path telling you where to go. Your desire for order just smacks right into the world's complete indifference to your plans. That's kind of it, that feeling of the clash.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Yes.
It captures that core conflict perfectly. And Camus, he really digs into what that means for us, how we live with that tension, especially in that key 1942 essay, The Myth of Sisyphus.
Ah, yes, The Myth of Sisyphus. That's where he really throws down the gauntlet, isn't it? I remember that opening line. Pretty intense.
Oh, absolutely. It grabs you immediately. He starts with, there was only one truly serious philosophical problem, suicide. Deciding whether life is worth living or not is to answer the fundamental question of philosophy. Sets the stakes high from the get-go.
No kidding.
So in the essay, he's directly asking, okay, if life doesn't offer inherent meaning, how do we respond? He looks at three main possibilities, and he pretty firmly rejects the first two. First, there's actual physical suicide, or what he also groups in there, philosophical suicide. That means escaping into comforting illusions. Maybe traditional religion, maybe rigid political ideologies, things that offer ready-made meaning.
Right. Kind of like pretending the absurd isn't there.
Exactly. He sees it as giving up, dodging the actual confrontation. It destroys the chance to even experience the absurd fully. The second path he rejects is what he calls the leap of faith. This is also a form of philosophical suicide for him. It's denying the reality of the absurd by just deciding to believe in something beyond it, like God or some absolute moral law, without evidence. Just because you need the comfort.
So denying the tension again.
Precisely. He's saying you can't just wish the conflict away. So his proposed path, the third one, is acceptance, but not passive acceptance. It's an active acceptance of the absurd condition, living with the full awareness of it, not trying to escape it or ignore it. And this active stance, this conscious living with the absurd, he calls revolt.
Okay, revolt. And that's where Sisyphus comes in, right? The mythological guy. He becomes the symbol for this revolt. Remind us quickly, Sisyphus. Condemned by the gods, push a huge rock up a hill, it rolls down, repeat, forever. Seems like the ultimate pointless task.
Exactly. The perfect picture of futile, endless labor. But Camus flips the script. He reinterprets Sisyphus not as this tragic, defeated figure, but as the ultimate absurd hero. Why? Because Sisyphus is aware. He knows his work is meaningless in the grand scheme. It achieves nothing permanent. Yet he keeps going. He pushes the rock with dedication, with dignity, and Camus argues even with a kind of joy found in the struggle itself. This leads to that incredibly famous, maybe challenging line, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy."
Happy! Pushing a rock forever.
Yeah. It suggests happiness isn't dependent on achieving some final purpose or meaning imposed from outside. It can be found within the absurd condition itself if you accept it, embrace the struggle, and choose to live fully in that moment, in that act of pushing.
Wow. Imagining Sisyphus happy, it really turns things on their head, doesn't it? It fights against everything we think about finding purpose. So how does that, translate from a myth about eternal punishment to, well, our lives? Getting up, going to work, dealing with everyday frustrations. How does that look?
Well, that's where Camus's other works, his novels and plays, become so powerful. He wasn't just theorizing. He showed what the absurd looks like in human lives, in relatable experiences.
Like The Stranger?
Exactly. The Stranger, also from 1942. The main character, Mersault. He's like the poster child for the absurd man. His reactions, or lack thereof, to things society expects, intense emotion about his mother's funeral, committing a murder, his own trial, they're baffling to others. He shows this stark indifference, this disconnect between his own internal state of just being and society's desperate need to impose meaning and motive onto everything he does.
Yeah, people just can't handle his lack of explanation.
Precisely. And his journey ends with this profound acceptance of the absurd, this tender indifference of the world, as he puts it. It brings him a weird kind of peace, almost a liberation, because he stops fighting for a meaning that isn't there. He just accepts reality.
Okay, so that's one angle. What about the plague? That feels different.
It is, but it explores the same theme. The Plague, from 1947, uses the epidemic as this big metaphor. It represents the meaningless, random suffering and evil that can just descend on us without reason. But the characters, especially someone like Dr. Ryu, they embody that revolt we talked about. They fight the plague relentlessly, not because they think they have some divine mission or guaranteed victory.
Right, they know it's overwhelming.
Yes, they fight it simply out of basic human decency, solidarity, a commitment to alleviating suffering now. They create value through their actions, through their shared struggle against the absurd, even if the universe itself doesn't care. It's about human connection and resistance.
So meaning comes from the struggle together.
In a way, yes. Human-created meaning through action and solidarity. And then briefly, there's the play Caligula from 1944. It shows a darker side. The Emperor Caligula realizes the world is absurd after a deep personal loss, but his rebellion becomes destructive, tyrannical, and nihilistic.
So it's a warning.
It serves as a contrast, yeah. It shows what can happen if you recognize the absurd, but don't embrace the positive principles Camus advocates revolt, combined with freedom and passion. Caligula's revolt is purely negative.
Okay, that makes sense. So if we're trying to live with this absurd reality, if we accept it like Sisyphus or find solidarity like Dr. Rhea, what's the actual how-to? How does Camus suggest we navigate day to day?
He lays out three core principles, essentially. Ways to live authentically within the absurd. First, as we've said, is revolt. And again, this isn't anger or despair. It's a constant active resistance against letting meaninglessness win. It's affirming life through your actions, through creativity, through engagement. Think of someone fighting for justice even when it seems hopeless, or an artist creating beauty in a chaotic world. That's revolt. It's saying yes to life right here, right now, despite everything.
Okay, so it's an active yes.
Exactly. The second principle is freedom liberté. Recognizing the absurd, strangely enough, frees you. It liberates you from chasing illusions, from needing external validation or conforming to imposed meanings. You're free from the burden of finding some ultimate, preordained purpose. This allows you to define your own values and live by them. You get to choose what matters to you, moment by moment.
So the lack of cosmic rules gives you personal freedom.
In a nutshell, yes. The freedom that comes from seeing things clearly. And third, there's passion. Passion. Because there's no guaranteed eternity or grand cosmic plan, Camus urges us to live intensely, to fully engage with the present moment, to savor experiences, relationships, the sheer sensory reality of being alive.
Live it all, because this is it.
Pretty much. Embrace the quantity and quality of experience available to you now. So these three, revolt, freedom, passion, they don't give you a neat answer to the meaning of life. What they do is offer a way to live with dignity, joy, and authenticity within the absurd condition itself, finding value in the living, not in some endpoint.
It's striking how much these ideas, from the 40s and 50s still feel so incredibly relevant, maybe even more so today. Which brings up a question. Why do you think Camus' concept of the absurd still resonates so strongly in the 21st century?
That's a great point. It really does feel timely, doesn't it? I think it's because we're living through times that constantly throw the absurds in our faces, perhaps more overtly than ever. Think about major existential crises, global pandemics, the looming threat of climate change, geopolitical instability. These things really highlight the fragility of human existence, our lack of control, and nature's profound indifference to our plans and desires.
Right, it strips away comforting illusions.
Exactly. And traditional sources of meaning, established religions, grand political ideologies, they've lost their hold on many people. There's a vacuum, the sense of being adrift, that Camus speaks directly to. We see it in modern life too. People searching for meaning or connection through technology like social media, but often finding a kind of emptiness instead. That dissonance is a modern form of the absurd.
Yeah, the promise versus the reality.
Or the way globalization can blur traditional cultural identities, forcing individuals to confront questions about who they are and what life means more directly without the old frameworks. So Camus' message endures because it's not about finding easy answers, but about how to live with uncertainty. It's about finding freedom and joy, not by escaping the absurd, but by embracing it through our choices, our creativity, our connections with each other. That feels very now.
Yeah, it really does. Now, when people talk about Camus, he often gets compared to other big existentialist names, especially someone like Jean-Paul Sartre. But you mentioned earlier he rejected that label. So how is his view of the absurd distinct? What makes Camus Camus?
Good question, because the differences are really important. Take Sartre. His famous idea is existence precedes essence, meaning we're born blank slates and we create our own meaning, our own essence, entirely through our choices and actions. Freedom is absolute, and with it comes total responsibility to invent meaning. Camus agrees on the freedom part, but he doesn't think we create ultimate meaning in that same way. For Camus, life is valuable as it is, in its absurdity. We don't need to invent a grand purpose to justify living. The value is in the living itself, the revolt, the passion experiencing life, despite the lack of inherent objective meaning. It's a subtle but crucial difference. We live with the absurd, not overcome it by making up meaning.
I see. Less about invention, more about acceptance and living fully.
Right. Then you have someone like Heidegger. He talked a lot about anxiety, angst, as this awareness of our own being, our finitude facing death. And a path toward authentic being through confronting this is quite a deep metaphysical path. Camus, though, was much more grounded, more practical. He wasn't looking for metaphysical solutions or deeper truths about being with a capital B. He focused on the concrete reality of the human condition that clash and how to live ethically and joyfully right here without needing some transcendental escape hatch.
More focused on the how to live now.
Definitely. And then there's Nietzsche. Camus was definitely influenced by Nietzsche, especially the idea of the death of God and the need to reevaluate all values. But where Nietzsche talks about the Übermensch, the Superman who creates new values, Camus doesn't go there. Camus isn't about creating a new morality or becoming superhuman. He's about ordinary people finding dignity and value in their everyday lives, in their rebellion against meaninglessness, in solidarity. It's more human-scaled, perhaps.
That really clarifies things. It shows how he carved out his own specific space, offering a unique way to tackle these huge questions.
Absolutely. And that leads to the practical significance, right? This isn't just abstract philosophy for Camus. It's meant to change how you live. One huge practical benefit is this liberation from illusions. Once you accept the absurd, you can stop chasing false hopes, the promise of absolute meaning from religion, or the utopian dream of a perfect society from some ideology. It frees you from inevitable disappointment.
Takes the pressure off finding the answer.
Exactly. Which leads to the second point, valuing the present. If there's no guaranteed future reward or cosmic purpose, then this moment, this life, becomes incredibly precious. Camus encourages appreciating simple things. The beauty of the world, human connection, creativity, sensory experience. Value what's real, what's here.
Live more intensely now.
Yes. And third, it fosters an ethics of solidarity. We saw this in the plague. Recognizing our shared absurd condition facing suffering and meaninglessness together can actually bind us. It encourages compassion, mutual support, fighting against common struggles, not for some grand reward, but simply because it's the humane thing to do. Meaning is found in that shared effort.
Right, the connection becomes the value.
Precisely. Human connection and action in the face of indifference.
So pulling it all together then, Camus and the absurd, it's really not about despair. It's not about giving up. It sounds more like a challenge, maybe even an empowering one, an invitation to live actively, passionately, meaningfully, even when the universe doesn't give us neat answers. It's about how you face that indifference, how you choose to push your own rock.
That's it, exactly. Accepting that there's no pre-packaged absolute meaning can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
Paradoxically,
Yeah.
it frees you up to live according to your own lights, with passion, with freedom, with dignity. Remember Sisyphus, Mersault finding peace, Dr. Rue fighting the plague? Camus consistently shows that happiness, real human happiness, is possible. It's achievable without needing some grand cosmic purpose. If you embrace that revolt, that freedom, that passion for living right now, the value is in the journey, the struggle, the experience.
It's a powerful perspective, and if this conversation has intrigued you, if you want to go deeper, we really do recommend reading Camus himself. The myth of Sisyphus and the stranger are absolutely essential starting points. They make these ideas breathe.
They really do. And maybe leave you with this final thought to mull over.
Yeah.
Camus's ultimate lesson might be to stop searching so desperately for a meaning that the universe isn't providing. Instead, have the courage to create value through your own choices, your actions, your connections, your appreciation of life itself. That puts the power and the responsibility squarely back on you to define what matters moment by moment in this one life we know we have.
A profound and, yes, empowering thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Camus and the absurd. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time.